True. Let's go to Karma Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates' lines, we break the bondage tight. Kanji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. Chill drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the Kanji verse.
You're listening to Black Agenda Radio. I'm Margaret Kimberly. Maurice Carney is the executive director of Friends of the Congo. He joins us from Washington to discuss the ongoing crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda's continued intervention with their M23 militia, Congo's offer of minerals to the U.S., and the signing of a peace agreement in Washington scheduled to take place on June 27. What does the agreement do? Will the people of the Eastern DRC finally have peace and safety? Maurice Carney will provide analysis. Thank you so much for joining me again.
It's a pleasure to be back with you, Margaret.
We last spoke about this issue a couple of months ago after the government of Congo, unable to stop these M23, that is to say Rwandan incursions into their country, and asked Trump for help and offered the U.S. access to minerals. So what was offered to the U.S.? How did they reach out to the U.S.?
The Congolese government has and representatives and the political class in the Congo have been reaching out to the U.S. for some time now to see if they can bring U.S. investors to invest in mines, primarily in the Congo. However, this recent minerals for security deal, as it's been described, the Congolese government calls it the Amani Initiative, is more specific. We've been able to get greater details around it based on different reports. For example, Africa Intelligence said the deal is a $2 to $3 trillion offer. And you have a number of lobbyists in Washington saying that the deal that's on the table is going to be a deal for decades to come. And analysts have looked at the situation in the Congo in terms of the mines, and the Chinese have control of 80% or so of the copper and cobalt mines. So there's not much that the Congolese government can offer to the U.S. government in that regard. However, if you look to the east of and those mines are primarily in the south of the country. However, if you look to the east of the country, there's possibilities around coltan. There's already an American company there in the east with one of the largest tin mines, alphamines. I'm certain, I suspect anyways, that could be expanded upon. And then you have pyrochlor, is some mines that possibilities have been put on the table as well. And also you have lithium mine that's available that a U.S. corporation called Cobalt Minerals, that's backed by Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. They've raised $1 billion so far this year to go after the lithium mines. It's a place called Manono. Interestingly enough, the Congolese government is in dispute with an Australian and Chinese company, AVZ Minerals, about the ownership of the Manono mines. So that's a lay of the land, so to speak, in terms of what the U.S. would get. They would get access to critical minerals. I can tell you, Margaret, the number of bills over the past few years that's been focused on the Congo and getting access to critical minerals at the expense of the Chinese. So competition with the Chinese is front and center. Chinese control the bulk of the copper and the cobalt. And copper is really key, too, when we talk about critical minerals. And then the U.S. investors would come in, like the Bezos, the Gates, and the Bloombergs and others. So that's what the U.S. Would get from this deal. Now, in terms of security for the Congo, we asked the Congolese government and the political class one simple question. Can you identify a place on the African continent, either today or historically, where the U.S. has brought security? So I don't know where they got the idea from that the United States can be or has the potential to be a force for security on the African continent. In fact, it's, as you and I know, it's the contrary. Since the launching of AFRICOM, which is the U.S.'s in 2008 under Donald Rumsfeld and George Bush, we've seen that Obama took it up, President Obama. And when we talk about insecurity and terrorism, it increased almost 2,000% when the United States said they're going to be putting more special forces and establish more bases. So I can't imagine what the Congolese government is thinking. There's no evidence that there's any kind of security that the United States can bring anywhere on the African continent. So left perplexed by that.
So this agreement, what's in the agreement? What are the parties agreeing to do?
That hasn't been made public. What we've seen is speculation. And some analysts are out there saying, for example, because the agreement is tied to the peace deal that's on the table. For example, Rwanda, who's been taking minerals out of Congo illicitly, they would now be able to transit minerals out of Congo legally and have the minerals processed and refined out of Rwanda, which I don't see how that accrues to the benefit of the Congolese people. Donald Trump's special advisor to Africa, Massad Boulos, Lebanese individual who's a businessman, who is the father-in-law to Donald Trump's daughter, Tiffany. He's indicated that you have the International Finance Development Corporation or even the U.S. government would come in to secure the investments of U.S. investors. We see a government role in there where U.S. investors, their monies would be backed by the U.S. government. Even before this particular deal with the Biden administration, we saw that they were pursuing critical minerals that were held by Dan Gertler, the Israeli billionaire who has ill-gotten gains in the Congo. He became a billionaire off the Congo, was sanctioned by the U.S. government and the Treasury Department. And the Biden administration was putting a deal on the table for the sanctions to be lifted if Gertler would get up off of his concessions. He makes about $200,000 a day in royalties from the concessions that he has. If he was to get up off of those, the U.S. was offering them about $300 million or so to open up, leave those concessions on the table for private investors to come in. So more investors would come in. That's another aspect of the deal that's been laid out, but it hasn't been made public. In fact, we invited Congolese women from different parts of the Congo to come to Washington to speak to members of Congress to try and get some sense of what's in the deal, because the thing about the whole enterprise is that the Congolese civil society, the Congolese people have been left out. This is really a deal between local elites in Africa. We're talking about the likes of Felix Tshisekedi, president of Congo, and Paul Kagame, president of Rwanda, along with the global elites in Washington. So the people have been left out of the equation. We have been told by members of Congress that on the House side, that they invited Donald Trump's senior advisor to Africa, Massad Boulos, up to Congress. They did it about 10 days or so ago for him to give a classified briefing on the deal. So that gives you a sense of the opacity of the deal, the lack of transparency, which is two major issues in addition to the fact that the Congolese people have been left out of it. Two major issues that the Congolese women who came to Washington were raising. Like there's lack of, no one has seen the document, but apparently now members of Congress have gotten a briefing from Massad Boulos, and the briefing was classified, so they're not able to share what happened in that meeting.
And will the document be public after it's signed?
Well, when you're talking about the signing of the document becoming public, the signing that's taken place this week is the peace deal that's been on the table. In April of this year, April 27th, or April 25th rather, the Congolese government, representative of the foreign minister of the Congolese government, the foreign minister of Rwanda, signed a principle of declarations right here in Washington that was presided over by Marco Rubio. As a follow-up to that, this Friday, on June 27th, the representatives from the Congolese government and the Rwandan government are going to be signing a deal, the peace deal. And that signing on the 27th, that will be made public. And a follow-up to that, further follow-up, would be for the president of the DRC, the DR Congo, and the president of Rwanda to come to Washington for a White House signing and ceremony at some point in July. Now, important thing about this, Margaret, whether we're talking about the peace deal or we're talking about the minerals deal, it's so critical for us to understand that these decisions, not only about the Congo, but about the Africa, future of Africa, are being made in Washington. And it's neocolonial elites on the African continent. In this instance, President Kagame, President Tshisekedi, in cahoots with Washington that are, for all intents and purposes, from what we've seen thus far, selling off the patrimony of the African people. Because when we talk about the Congo, we have to talk about Africa overall. We're talking about a space that there's some $24 trillion, the economists say, in natural resources that are there. That's controlled by non-Africans. So what that means is that those are resources that the African continent cannot leverage for its own development. So this is not just a Congolese issue, but it's a broader African issue, and decisions are being made in Washington, D.C. And that's why, in part, why the women came to address friendly policymakers, members of Congress. They met with Ilhan Omar, for example, to try and put their concerns on the table to see to what extent they can get support at the legislative level or the federal level here in the United States.
What is it that the Congolese people would like the U.S. to do? If they want the U.S. to have a role at all, what would they want the U.S. to do?
Several things that they'd like the United States to do, and which we've been campaigning for some time. Stop arming, stop financing, stop training, stop providing diplomatic and political cover for its proxies in the region, primarily Rwanda and to some extent Uganda. That's the number one thing that Congolese people across the board have called on the United States to do, is to cease its support and cover of these nations that have conducted a war of aggression and plunder against the Congolese people. That's the number one thing that they've asked. That's different. The people are different from the Congolese elite. The Congolese elite, like President Tshisekedi, he's under pressure from a militia group and the Rwandan soldiers, and left to their own devices, it's not out of the question that they would run him out of power in Kinshasa. So he's looking for cover from the United States, and to sweeten the pot, so to speak, he's willing to sell off Congo's minerals in order to protect his own political tenure. And that's where the elite is. And for them, they see having a minerals deal with the U.S. or whomever, that's an opportunity for them to pocket money as well. So the interests on the part of the Congolese people are really fundamentally different from that of the Congolese elite. And we see that, Margaret, just to give you an example, we see the Congolese government just yesterday, they issued a press release talking about they were on the verge of condemning Iran for firing missiles into Qatar. And what we saw when the Congolese government issued a press release about that was across the board, the Congolese people just lashed out at the government, saying, well, how could you be silent on Israel firing missiles into Iran and the United States firing missiles into Iran, and then you're going to be making noise about Iran firing missiles into Qatar or at U.S. bases that are in the region. I think that's an example of the sharp relief or the distinction or difference between what the elites, where they stand and where the Congolese people writ large stands.
So after this like a two-part agreement, there's a signing on June 27th, and then the two presidents, Tshisekedi and Kagame, will come to Washington, correct? That's
the plan. That's what the White House has stated. Whether that will actually happen, we'll have to wait and see. People haven't, for example, President Kagame, he hasn't been seen in weeks now, and there are concerns about where he is and what his state of health is. And even if he was healthy and all, with all that is happening in the world, with the unpredictability of the Trump administration, we just don't know if that's actually going to come to fruition. Another thing you just brought to mind, Margaret, as preposterous as it may seem, before we came on, you talked about a tweet that Trump made. And in that tweet, he referenced a Nobel Peace Prize, that he should be getting a Peace Prize for bringing peace, India and Pakistan. I'm in there working that out so that they can calm the guns. And I'm going to bring peace between Iran and Israel. And I'm going to bring peace between Congo and Rwanda that's been going on for decades. So in his own mind, he's in the running for a Nobel Peace Prize. So that would be a part of the interest, I would suppose. I guess he figures seeing that President Obama got a peace prize, then he can get one as well. I don't know, but that's come up on several occasions that he's seen as the harbinger of peace, or the bringer of peace to Congo. And there's not going to be peace because the deal lacks any kind of justice, any kind of accountability. Thousands of people have been killed, millions have been displaced, and the way the deal is set up, though the belligerents, those who have been the authors of the destabilization in the east of the Congo, they would be rewarded, whether it would be the militia groups, the M23. Peace deal is saying that they are to be incorporated in the Congolese military, or the Rwandan government and their soldiers. The peace deal is saying that, there should be an economic integration in the east of the Congo, where Rwanda would serve as the source for processing and refining of Congo's minerals. So it's a peace deal, but it's very difficult to see how this deal, based on what we've seen so far, is going to bring about any kind of peace or stability in the absence of any justice or accountability.
I'm going to read the post. Donald Trump announces governmental initiatives on his Truth Social site. He said in his typical grandiose way, quote, "I'm very happy to report that I have arranged, along with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a wonderful treaty between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda in their war, which was known for violent bloodshed and death, more so even than most other wars, and has gone on for decades. Representatives from Rwanda and the Congo will be in Washington to sign documents. This is a great day for Africa and, quite frankly, a great day for the world." It actually was more lucid than most of what he's been posting lately. And he went on to talk, as you said, about his claims of having brought peace and why he should get a Nobel Peace Prize. And by the way, I'm on record as saying for years that there was no reason for Obama to have gotten a peace prize. But at any rate, so that's one thing I would not argue with Trump about. But I mean, it's actually a lucid description. It has gone on for many years. It has brought a lot of death and destruction. These wars in Congo have been, the death toll is horrible, in the millions, having gone on all these years. But the idea, as you say, that the U.S. can be the guarantor of stability and safety for people in Africa is just it's ludicrous.
It's outlandish, yeah.
Have the members of the Congressional Black Caucus have they had anything to say about this?
Well, the women met with Jonathan Jackson out of Chicago, who's a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. They had a listening with him. He's a sponsor of a bill in the Congress around the Congo called the Bridge Act. So he's been on the forefront of trying to advance peace efforts in the Congo. There was Gregory Meeks has been vocal, and it seems like he's shifting a little bit, because he was staunchly in the camp of Kagame and waxing eloquently about Kagame, but now he seems to be a little more critical. And of course, Ilhan Omar, she's been very much engaged, particularly around any kind of minerals deal between the U.S. and Congo. She's been vocal and about her concerns. Not only about the current deal that's been talked about, but she's also been concerned about the Lobito corridor, which the United States and the European Union and the G7, and to remind your listeners, the Lobito corridor is a flagship initiative of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, what they call the PGII. And that's an undertaking by the United States government, the European Union, the G7, to combat China's Belt and Road Initiative in the Global South, where they would go in and build infrastructure locally and try to add value locally. At least that's how they're advertising it. And the Lobito Corridor, which is a rail line that's been refurbished that runs from the heart of the mining district in the Congo out through Angola to the Lobito port that can get minerals out of the Congo faster and quicker or more efficiently than the traditional routes, is the flagship initiative of the US's Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment that the Biden administration initiated, and the Trump administration is continuing. They've said that they're going to put about $6 billion into that initiative. And Ilhan Omar has been vocal about that and concerned about that, and brought the Congolese in to get what the people are thinking about this deal. So that's the extent to which the Black Caucus has been engaged through its individual members, but not as an entity as a whole. As you know, with the Black Caucus, especially with Gregory Meeks, he's the one who initiated the Russia Malign Act, and we've seen now the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, they're talking about the China Malign Act, and Cory Booker was at the forefront of that. So the default for them is around support for U.S. corporate interests in Africa, right? You're not going to see them standing up and saying, hands off, the alliance of Sahel states. That's not where you're going to get that kind of positioning on the part of the Black Caucus, a positioning that would be in alignment with the masses of Africans who are clear that their interests lie in resource sovereignty, in Africans controlling their own resources for their own benefit and using their resources as they see fit. And we haven't seen really anyone in the Black Caucus to take a stand in that regard.
And what about other African nations? What have the African Union or other African nations, what are their positions about this agreement?
That is a really good question, Margaret, because you have so many players that are involved, and I'll just stick to the African Union as you asked. And the African Union had been spearheading an initiative called the Luanda Accords, named after the Luanda, Angola, and it was spearheaded by Angola's president, João Lourenço. But since he's been assumed the position of the African Union then assigned for Nyasimbe, the president of Togo, to head the peace in the Luanda Accord and the peace initiative. And they've recruited other former African heads of state as well. When I say they, meaning the African Union, the likes of Obasanjo of Nigeria, Kenyatta of Kenya, and a number of others to spearhead the Luanda Accords. And having Faure Gnassingbe as the head of that effort raises a bunch of questions, because as you know, in Togo, he's crushing the Togolese people. He and his family has been in power for over almost a half a century, and the Togolese people, as we speak today, are rising up against them. So he's got his own issues in his own country that he needs to deal with. But the point is that these efforts, there's East African community efforts, there's a Southern African Development Community effort, and Southern African Development Community and East African efforts. All of them are taking second seat to the Trump administration's peace effort. And Trump administration is given lip service in the sense of saying that, well, all those efforts are incorporated into the peace deal. But U.S. led effort is the one that's taking it. And that gives you another sense too, Margaret, that here it is that we're talking about arguably one of the most strategic and important country on the African continent. And again, the African Union is playing second fiddle, not dissimilar from the way it played second fiddle when, Sarkozy out of France, the French president, and Obama, and Hillary Clinton out of the United States with NATO and AFRICOM launched a regime change in Libya. The African Union, again, was sidelined. And in some respects, it kind of makes sense. When you think about like security arm of the African Union, up over 90% of the funding comes from Europe. And the same with the African Union Commission. When our sister South African, Dlamini Zuma, assumed the leadership of the chairmanship of the African Union, she said one of the things that struck her is how the African Union was funded by Europe. So that gives you a sense of, what the expectations that we can have from the African Union.
I was not aware of that. I feel like I should have known that, but at the same time, it's not at all surprising, is it? That this entity, that this structure that's supposed to represent the entire continent is funded by European countries, the colonizers, whose crimes are still impacting these nations now, which is what we've been talking about, the legacies of colonialism. As we close, is there anything I didn't ask that you would like our listeners to know?
I think one of the things is, what can listeners do? How can they be in solidarity with the people of the Congo? And I think that's an important point to elevate. In that, as I said earlier, Margaret, we're not just talking about the Congo and the situation is confined to that. We're talking about the continent as a whole. So one of the things that people should take into consideration is that this is an issue for the continent and really for the African world, for progressive forces throughout the globe, because these minerals that the U.S. and the West is looking to control, they're vital for their aerospace industries. They're vital for their military industries. They're vital for a range of industries in the U.S. So, and right now we see in West Africa, Africans are fighting for resource sovereignty. So if the heart of the continent is captured by the global elite in the West, then that puts a major obstacle in front of the continent in terms of it moving forward. So we do need people rallying behind the Congolese people, being in solidarity with the Congolese people, first by understanding what's going on, being informed, and second, by mobilizing to support them. One of the demands that the women made is that they said elevate our voices, amplify our voices, support our frontline organizations that are looking to challenge this neo-colonial, neoliberal imposition on the Congolese people. So I think that's a really critical part to let people know that we just shouldn't sit by and watch this happen and watch these local and global elites capture the heart of the African continent, that we have to resist, we have to be engaged, and we have to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the Congo, and certainly in West Africa and the Sahel states that are the cutting edge of the path toward resource sovereignty on the continent.
Thank you so much, Maurice.
Thank you, Margaret.
And that was Maurice Carney of Friends of the Congo, providing analysis on the agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which will be signed in Washington on June 27th.
Let's go to Karma Green, we steady on the rise. Digging truth from ancient scenes, we open blinded eyes. Rhyme sharp like pirates' lines, we break the bondage tight. Kanji speaking revolution, keep the fire burning. The drums guide our stride, we march with purpose proud. No more silence, we collide, our voices thunder loud. Politics and history, we stitch them in every verse. From Pharaoh's throne to Yaoundé streets, we claim the Kanji verse.